Hey everybody, welcome back here to my channel where I play Planet Zoo. My name is Nisse and today we're gonna finish off this Australian house. If you want to see how I built the house itself, then you can see my other video on it, which is called Australian House Tasmanian Devil. I will link that video below so you can go and see it if you want to, along with a lot of other links for the animals we're going to look at here, and they're going to be a lot because we're gonna look at the Numbat, the Wombat, two different koalas, two different wallabies, the kangaroo and the emu. Yeah, if you didn't get the Australian vibe yet, then you hopefully are going to get there. I know it's a lot of animal for the size of this habitat. I will try to make it a big different by adding a second and third floor in here for the climbing animals, but it basically will, no matter what, be a bit too small. This habitat won't work if you're playing challenge or friend size, but because I play sandbox, I adjusted the settings so my animals really doesn't care how much space they get. That doesn't mean that I would think that a zoo should have these small habitats for the animals. It wasn't my thought that I would have this many animals, but I've been really inspired to make a Australian habitat, and when I went on Nexus, honestly I didn't know what to search for. I knew koala, Tasmanian devil and kangaroo, of course, and I knew there was a smaller version of kangaroo, but I didn't know what it was called, to be honest. So instead I just googled Australian animals and so many came up, and I'm so happy for it. And every single animal I found, I just plugged into Nexus and see what they got, and there's a lot of animal missing. I will say that some of them I understand. There was a special kind of bat, I don't remember the specific name of it now, that was so interesting just both to look at and to read about, but I understand why it isn't a mod, because a lot of these smaller animals in the modding world just seems a bit weird, or you really have to zoom in to actually see the animals in the zoo. And furthermore, the bat is of course also a flying animal, and to add to that, an animal that doesn't even hit the ground. Some birds like cranes and flamingo live a big part of their life on the ground still, where bats just doesn't. They stay up in the trees or the caves or where they live, not really hitting the ground. So I understand why it would be very difficult to make, especially since we don't have the flying animations in the game. Australia actually got a lot of beautiful animals, and that's actually why I decided to not really care about the size of this habitat. I wanted all of these animals in if I could. The Tasmanian devil got its own habitat because it is a carnivore and it would conflict with some of the other animals. Of course, we have animals here that also eat meat. That would be the Numbat for once, but it just seemed to me, again, I built this before I researched it, but it seems so much less carnivore-ish, with it eating more worms and that kind of animals, where the Tasmanian devil actually will eat anything they get a chance to eat. Before we talk too much about the animals we have in this habitat, I just want to go over what a marsupial is. Marsupial are these animals that give birth to extremely incomplete babies that are unable to live out in the world. Therefore, they have this pouch where when they give birth, the baby will actually climb up and into the pouch itself, and inside that pouch the mother will have its titties, so the baby will grow up in this pouch and drink the milk without even having to do anything else than just drink it. Then when they get bigger, the mom will push them out of the pouch, and then they will learn to live as the animal itself. The reason why I decided to take in this part about the marsupial is because the Numbat, the Wombat, the Koala, the Wallaby, and the Kangaroo is all marsupials. So it was just so we don't have to repeat ourselves. The Numbat is actually known as the small striped anteater, which is, yes, it's small, but it's actually not an anteater at all, because they don't eat ants. They can accidentally when they get stuck to the tongue. The Numbat have this extremely sticky tongue, so they can push the tongue into a termite home, and then when they pull the tongue up, the termites will get stuck to the tongue, and then they just pull the tongue into the mouth, and then this way eating the termites. So they can accidentally hit an ant or two, but they don't prefer to eat them. They don't seek them out. They only want the termites. And they can actually eat up to 20,000 termites a day. So if you have issues with termites, maybe get a Numbat. But if you don't know where to get termites, then leave the Numbat alone. The termite are actually a really healthy diet for the Numbat, especially because they don't need any water. Because there are enough liquids inside the termite, so the water need is completely satisfied this way, which is especially practical when you have these small legs and maybe live a bit away from the water. It can be a bit hard to actually get to see a Numbat, especially because their habitats are extremely limited. They prefer to live in eucalypt woodlands, but they need a place where there are some big fallen trees, providing them tree logs that they can get shelter in and live in. They also need nest sites, and of course they also both use the tree logs to forage for the termites. They need a lot of trees around them to protect them for the birds, but they also need sunlight to get through the trees and warm up the ground, because if the ground is too cold, there won't be any termites. Also, they can live places where there's too much water in the ground, because that would also limit the number of termites. The number of Numbats in an area is constricted to how many termites there are, since they are their only food source. Besides the very strict diet the Numbat has, it also have other reasons for being very threatened. There's less than 1,000 left in the wild at this point, and they are extremely hunted both by cats and foxes that actually aren't native to the area but were introduced. Sadly, their habitats are also very limited, but there are things being done at this point, whereas different zoos every year release young individual into the wild, so hopefully we can get the numbers up, but it doesn't seem promising at this point. My information about the Numbat I actually found on a site called numbat.org.au, and it's again, it's a really good read. I linked it in the description, of course, and I can really recommend you go and look at it. Now let's talk a bit about the Wombat. Here my information comes from Bush Heritage Australia, and they just jump right into it with 2 fun facts, so why don't I just read them out loud. The Wombat normally waddles, but they can actually run an impressive 40 kilometers per hour. That would be roughly 24 miles per hour. And the other fun fact is that they have cube-shaped poo, which they write because of their digestive system that actually takes food 14 to 18 days from the eater to actually poop it out, but they don't give too many details about it. There's 3 different kind of wombats. There's the common or bare-nosed wombat, that's the one we got here. But then there's also the hairy-nosed wombat, also called the northern hairy-nosed. And then there's the southern hairy-nosed wombat as well. But the common Numbat, which is the one we have here, is mainly found in, of course, Australian mainland, but also in Tasmania and Flinders Island. The common wombat, or the bare-nosed wombat, again the one we have here as a mod, prefers more foresty area compared to its hairy nosed cousins. Even though the wombat actually could look like someone who lives up in the tree, they actually do live in burrows, often creating a more thorough burrow with a lot of tunnels and different chambers where they can live. And this tunnel system underground can actually grow up to 150 meters in radius. That would be about 492 feet in radius. They dig these tunnels out with their big claws on their forelegs and then actually use the back legs to push out the dirt so it just doesn't just stop where the wombat is, but actually get pushed further out of the tunnel. Then actually after digging a bit like this, it actually lie down on its sides and then it start digging out the side walls of the tunnel. Again, same technique but just laying down on the ground. Okay, I just checked because I think this thing about the burrow actually is a big part of the wombat's lives after reading it. So I went back in and checked, and this modded wombat doesn't use the burrows. I can't tell you why. Maybe it was created before the burrows was a thing in Planet 2, or maybe the modder just doesn't know. A lot of these modders work really hard to get us the biggest possible mods out there, and they do it all on their own time. You can of course go and endorse them, and you can send them a bit of money. When you download a mod on Nexus, there is a tab where you can choose to send them some, but basically they do this all for free. I don't think a detail like this is horrible. It is kind of weird, but I really don't blame the modders for not doing a lot of research. They do some, because we know in Zoopedia a lot of them put in a lot of text, but I don't blame them for not going into every single piece of information there are about an animal. It may also just be because they are made on the koala rig. I assume, I don't know, but I assume they're made on the koala rig since they use all of the same enrichments, but as the koala, and the koala doesn't burrow, so that might have something to do with it. The wombat is closely related to the koala and kind of have the same eating habits, and therefore they of course sleep a lot, up to 16 hours a day. They do like to share their burrows, which I can imagine if you have to dig all of that 150 meter in radius burrow yourself, then you would appreciate someone to take some of the workload there, so that makes sense. But they are, however, extremely territorial about their hunting grounds. So you can sleep in my house, but you can't eat my food. That's basically what that's about. Wombats were previously hunted all over Australia, and both for food but also basically because they were considered pests. But most of Australia now have them protected, but not in Victoria. There you can actually get a permit to regulate them if you are a farmer, because they are considered an agricultural pest, but you need a permit for it, so it's not just like everyone can just go out and kill them. They also lose a lot of their habitat, and they also have to compete with food for introduce herbivores such as rabbits, cattle, sheep and goats. And pretty much foxes, dingoes, dogs, eagles and Tasmanian devils will hunt them and eat them. Bush Heritage, who made this article, are working really hard to try and help the wombat and many other Australian animals, and you are able to help here by leaving a penny or two. So if you feel like this is something you want to do something about and you want to help it, please go to this link, of course in the description, and leave whatever you want to leave there. I know I recommend a lot that you donate money for different sites. I'm just telling you for information, so you can if you want to. If you don't want to, or you just can't, then you shouldn't do it. But it's just so you know you have the opportunity. Now let's talk a bit about the koala. The koala is mostly known as this beautiful, fluffy, teddy bear-ish animal, and they are so cute. I think it's especially children will love them, but everyone with a child inside probably love them. They actually also have a bit of fun things about them. For instance, they do have fur like most animals, but their fur is more coarse, like a wool. They have thumbs, which many animals actually have, but they don't stop there. They don't only have one thumb on every paw, but they have two thumbs on every paw. And furthermore, they also have two toes that's fused in together on their feet so they can comb their hair with them. Their entire body are made for climbing. It's small, compact, and they have padding on all four paws so they can grab very easily to things. It is important when you sleep as much as a koala does that you actually are able to hang on to a branch even though you're actually asleep. As many people know, the koala lives off eucalyptus. They both count on the eucalyptus to give them a home, but also for their entire diet. The eucalyptus isn't very nutritious and therefore don't give the koala a lot of energy. And furthermore, they are actually also toxic. So the digestive system of the koala works extremely hard. Therefore, they sleep between 18 and 22 hours a day. Luckily for the koala, they can actually store extra food in their cheek pouches and therefore actually eat later on if they wake up and don't have the energy to go out and look for food, which is in the same tree as their home, but then just eat the leftover in their cheeks. Koalas sadly have a lot of threats. I will say though, we have two different koalas in this habitat. One of them is the one for the game, and the other one is the Victorian Koala. But this information is for koalas overall. The number of the koalas have been declining ever since the 19th and 20th century, where they were hunted for the fur. Nowadays they still has issue because people clear the land and they use the trees for logging, and even worse is all of the bushfires, which of course isn't always man-made, and when there are that it is an accident. There was a devastating fire just a few years ago, 2019 to 2020, and it had destroyed so much of the forest that the koalas really need. Every single koala needs at least 100 trees each to have enough food and shelter to get by. And it is a present problem in Australia that the woodlands just are shrinking. The koalas are at this point listed as vulnerable, but we can't be sure that they are going to stay there or if it's going to get worse. Predators include dingoes and large owl. They are also at risk of getting hit by cars and attacked by dogs. And a threat they actually share with the humans is that chlamydia is widely spread between the population, which can cause blindness, infertility, and sometimes even death. A lot of different kind of help organizations are doing a lot. The information I have here is from National Geographic, which clearly is more based on information. So if you want to help the koalas, you can go back to Bush Heritage, which we use for the Wombat, since they are also helping the koalas. Now let's talk a bit about the wallaby. Again, I'm gonna mash the wallabies together with the information so I can give you as much as possible without having to repeat myself. But in this habitat we have two different wallabies, that being the Bennett wallaby and the yellow-footed rock wallaby. The yellow-footed rock wallaby you can recognize by the yellow legs and the smaller size, where the Bennett wallaby actually have a yellowish spot on their back, so you can recognize them that way instead. All of the wallabies are of course closely related to the kangaroo, and there are 11 different subspecies of wallaby. All these subspecies are of course all the basic same animals, also basic the same animals as the kangaroo. There are a bit different though. The kangaroo I will talk about it a bit later, but it is for once much bigger. But it has 3 categories under here, and not all of them actually fits into these categories, but I'm just want to go over them very fast. 6 of the subspecies of wallaby is rock wallabies. They live among rocks and usually near water. They are typically colored brown to gray and are distinguished with different kind of stripes, patches or other markings. In this case we have the yellow-footed rock wallaby, which fits perfectly into this category. The second category is the hair wallabies. These are much smaller and more sporty made. Their movement is much less like the one we know from kangaroos and wallabies, and more like an hare, which means they are much quicker and more flexible in their movement running around. The third one is the forest wallabies, and they are native to the island of New Guinea. In this group, the dwarf wallaby is the smallest member, which is actually also the smallest member of the kangaroo family, which weigh all the way down to 1.6 kilo. That would be 3 to 5 pounds. My information about the wallabies come from Britannica, and that's of course also linked below. Now let's talk about their big brother, the kangaroo. To talk about them, I went back to Bush Heritage, where you can donate if you want to learn a bit about them. And basically the biggest difference between the kangaroo and the wallaby is the size. And I will say though, you can clearly see in the cinematic what's a wallaby and what's a kangaroo. The kangaroo has the double size. The kangaroo from the game is the red kangaroo, so that can differ in size for other kangaroos. Now we all know the kangaroo for their big jump, but did you know that in a single jump a kangaroo can actually move 8 meters? And if you don't know meters, that would be 26 foot. Even more impressive actually is that in this jumping way they can actually move up to 60 kilometers per hour. That would be roughly 37 miles per hour. It's not the fastest animal out there, but it is pretty fast. The kangaroo is also the largest marsupial out there, and it is also the last marsupial on our list today. Our last animal today is the emu, and I just chose to still use Bush Heritage because it's really good information in here. And they just, with their first sentence, they just put the emu in a nutshell. They write, emus are unusual birds. They don't tweet, they grunt, they don't fly, they walk and run as fast as 50 kilometers. I'm just gonna check. 50 kilometers is about 30 miles per hour. Emus actually do have wings, even though they are kind of disappointing. If I was a bird and had these wings, I would be mad. They are hidden behind all these big fluffy feathers, but if you stretch out their wings, they will be about 20 centimeters long, which would be just under 8 inches. Here we finally have an animal that really isn't that big issue with. They are still eaten some places in Australia, and besides the fact that we eat it, their fat is also used for oil, and their bones are used for knives, tenders for string and feathers for ceremonial adornment. And you know, I would love to talk so much more about these beautiful animals, but now I think you deserve a break from me and just enjoy all of these cinematic. I hope you like it. I'm for once very proud of them. Well, that's everyone, was all I have for you today. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please, I'm not really sure, is this too much information or do you want more just straight fact? I really love researching these animals, but I also know that a lot of people aren't that nerdy about animals, and as I am, some of you probably just want to see the habitat. So please tell me how you feel about me talking this much about facts about the animals. But anyway, you know the drill. Like, subscribe and turn on the bell of notification so you know the next time I upload a video. I really hope to see you again, either in the comments below or in the next video. Bye guys!